Hold on. Let's see. I want to play this intro first. Why is this not playing? Oh my goodness, Sophia. Our intros doesn't want to play. Oh well, we'll figure this
Oh
out.
man.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. I was testing it earlier today. I wanted to show y'all our new intro. Here we go. Let's see if this will work.
What if the world isn't made of matter, but of thought? What if reality isn't something we inherit, but something we create? Welcome to The Discussion, where we explore the unseen architecture of existence. From ancient philosophy to modern dreams, we follow the thread of idealism, the belief that ideas shape reality, that perception is creation, that the mind is more powerful than we dare to imagine. What is real? What is possible? And if the two are not the same, how do we close the gap? Step beyond the ordinary. Enter the world of ideas. The Discussion with Scott and Sophia. Listen now, wherever you get your podcasts.
So, first of all, there is no clear boundary between classical and quantum. In other words, we again want to put things into boxes. That's the first mistake. There are no separate boxes. One is holistic. The reality, deeper reality, is holistic, means it's not made of separable parts. And it's not made of separable concepts, which is even deeper. So even true or false is an approximation of reality, valid under certain conditions. Like 1 and 0 are valid for a certain temperature and pressure of the computer. If you change the temperature, it doesn't work anymore, because that distinction can no longer be valid in a world where there is a continuity. There is, everything is connected with everything else. So, but we don't want that world because you cannot control that world. So the problem now is a problem of power and control behind this desire to have a deterministic and reductionistic world, which is the materialist philosophy, which is, it's time to abandon that, because quantum physics already is saying that that doesn't work. According to quantum physics, the universe is holistic, is not made of separable parts. Everything is connected. Everything is connected from the inside. But according to most physicists, there is no inside, because everything, they think that all that exists is actually what you can measure. But that is not possible. Nobody can understand why quantum computers work, because their actual operation cannot occur in space-time. It must occur in what is called Hilbert space. But Hilbert space is supposed to be a mathematical abstraction. So how can you do operations in an abstract space of mathematics? You see, it's incoherent. But nobody wants to think deeply about this stuff, because nobody has ever taught how to think deeply about stuff. They want to solve the problem. Give me an equation, I'll solve the equations. But the equations are created by consciousness. It is consciousness that creates mathematics, not mathematics that creates consciousness.
That is Federico Fragen. So he's like a PhD physicist, and seems like he's gone more towards the consciousness first theory. And that kind of sets up what we're going to talk about, with ideas that you actually had, and you actually came up with a little video outline too, and we'll play that a little later. But it's basically how to interpret the Bible using an idealistic lens. Is that correct? Is that a
Right.
good way to put that?
I would say that, what I would say to Christians is that the Bible actually supports idealism rather than biblical literalism.
Yes. Yeah, and you can see that with all kinds of religions. And even
Yeah.
like the physicist was talking about, even with science and quantum physics, you can interpret that from an idealistic point of view, which is more coherent and more parsimonious than
Right.
saying materialism or dualism. So that's going to
Right.
be really interesting, you know. So, you know, I really want to get into the topic, but I wanted to also show the little video that we have. Hold on, let me pull it back up. Because what you came up with was really interesting, drawing off, you know, the Bible and idealism, kind of lays it out. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up if I can.
Okay.
If I can find it, man. I forgot, my computer crashed. I had everything before the show exactly where I wanted it. And
Yeah,
now
everything, it looks a little different on my end too today, but only on this phone. On the other phone, it looks normal. I don't know.
all right,
Weird.
here we go. Turn this up a little bit. No, that's not it. Doggone it, man. Oh, here it is. Sorry. And let me just roll this back.
I'm just going to say, talk a little bit. The Bible contains many passages that can be interpreted as supporting philosophical idealism. The view that reality is fundamentally mental or that the material world is dependent on consciousness. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a few key themes and scriptures that align with idealist thought. And that's what we're going to do after you show this little video.
Yeah. If it'll even share it, because it's a different kind of file. Let's see. There we go. What in the world? Can you see it okay?
I see it,
Okay.
but I can't hear nothing.
Oh, man. All right. Yeah, I might have to work with this a little bit first. I had it all set up earlier, but ever since my computer crashed on me, I haven't been able to really. Let me try it one more time, though. Technical difficulties suck, man. Here we go. Can you hear it now?
Nope.
Ah,
You may have to back out and come back in, Scott.
let me try this one more time. Yeah, I don't know if it'll share the audio. That's the only thing. Can you hear any audio?
Nope.
Okay. All right, let's do that later on. I might upload it to here. But anyways, go ahead and give us a synopsis or a little short idea of what you're talking about, you know, with the Bible and...
Okay, I'm just going to go through these notes I have here. And basically what I'm trying to prove is that, oh, the music is slightly loud, Scott.
Okay. Let me
I'm
turn
sorry.
that down. Yeah. We have a lot of technical difficulties today.
Yep,
There we
it's
go.
one of those days.
Yeah, there we go.
So in Hebrews 11:3, it says, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. So that's one point. And then in John 1:1-3, we see, in the beginning was the Word. logos or logos. Yeah, logos. I'm saying that right.
Logos, yes.
And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. And then we have Acts 17:28. For in him we live and move and have our being. That's kind of like saying you're within that mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then these verses suggest that reality emerges from God's mind and not from an independent material substance. So as far as the Bible is concerned, it is actually not supporting the materialist view, which in my opinion, disproves Christian apologists who take everything in the Bible like literal. You know what I'm saying?
Literally. Hey,
Literally.
literally. So I got the video. So let me go ahead and play it.
In the beginning,
Okay.
God created the heavens and the earth. But how? A materialist might say he formed physical matter from nothing. But what if Genesis is telling us something deeper? God speaks, "Let there be light," and reality obeys. There's no mention of atoms, only divine consciousness shaping reality with thought. John 1:1 tells us, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." If the Word is alive, then reality isn't built from dead matter. It's an expression of divine thought. Even humanity isn't just dust. Our true essence comes from the breath of God. Consciousness first, matter second. So is Genesis describing a physical process, or the primacy of divine mind shaping existence? Maybe reality isn't built from particles, but from the Word itself.
So John 1:1, in the beginning was the Logos, like you were mentioning. The Word,
Right.
which words are really a reflection of thoughts. And so
Right.
thoughts kind of breathe the life into things, kind of breathe the consciousness into us.
So the way that I would describe that in maybe scientific ways, like for example, cymatics. Cymatics is basically the study of how frequencies and sound affect matter by arranging matter into like complex structures or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever seen that before?
Yep. Like with the sand, they can play a certain frequency and it creates designs with the sand and things like that.
Right. So while cymatics doesn't prove that sound creates matter, but it does prove that it structures it and organizes it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it's a frequency. And
Right.
I think you're familiar with OR, the microtubules, the
Yes.
quantum frequencies. That's kind of like a frequency, a music sort of thing. And Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff talk about that a lot, about how these microtubules in brains or whatever, or cells, actually orchestrate among other cells in the brain and unify like a conscious experience.
Yes. And I got a little thing right there. Inside your brain, tiny structures called microtubules don't just provide support, they process quantum information according to the orchestrated objective production, which is what you're talking about, right? And for short, it's called OR. So I'm just now like getting familiar with this stuff, but I just wanted to put it out there that that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. OR, orchestrated reduction.
Yeah.
It creates
And
a
it says
vibration.
it says that these microtubules interact with quantum fields, suggesting that consciousness is non-local, not confined to the brain, but possibly linked to the very fabric of reality.
Yeah, it's so
Cool.
interesting. It's really cool.
So cool.
So cool, man. And yeah, OR has really found a lot of supporting evidence with the super radiance, which is a quantum effect that they've actually measured in the microtubules in human brains. And then also back in 2014, I think he made a prediction that he would be able to affect consciousness through using some vibrations directly onto the part of the brain that affects these microtubules, and he did it, and sure enough, it met the predictions 100%. You know, and
Wow.
a lot of people were like, didn't understand how that can happen, because you see quantum effects usually only happen in like very isolated environments. Like if it's too noisy or wet, you know, it won't keep its coherence. It'll decohere or collapse, and so all those quantum effects disappear. But then, you know, we have things like photosynthesis, where we see quantum effects in that, in part of nature. Like in plants use sunlight, and you can't get any hotter than that. And yet,
Right.
you know, you see those things. I'm going to try to find a little bit about that. It's actually a field called quantum biology.
Okay.
And quantum biology actually is a real thing, right? And it, you know, it definitely shows that you can have quantum effects in nature like that, in noisy nature. So I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of find something about that really quick, because it affects it. You know, it goes into you know, the sense of smell, the experience of smelling things.
Mm-hmm.
Genetic memory has a big tie-in to that. There's so much, but I think, I don't know. I think you're familiar with this guy, Jim Al-Khalili.
Doesn't tell me nothing. I have to see him.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and play a little bit of this video.
I'm like very new to this idealism thing, philosophy.
Right.
But because I'm a mystic, I noticed right away that there's a lot of overlap there. You know, stuff that mystics have been saying for like ages.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's part of it. Is it really ties in even to the Bible, like we were just talking about.
Right.
But
And there's more scriptures, but I'll go over those, you know, after we watch some of your videos.
okay, so this is quantum biology. Helps you see how you can have quantum effects in a human brain, but he outlines why we know this can happen.
Speculative, but hugely exciting, and certainly one that's growing very rapidly. Quantum biology asks a very simple question. Does quantum mechanics, that weird and wonderful and powerful theory of the subatomic world, of atoms and molecules, that underpins so much of modern physics and chemistry, also play a role inside the living cell? In other words, are there processes, mechanisms, phenomena in living organisms that can only be explained with a helping hand from quantum mechanics? Now, quantum biology isn't new. It's been around since the early 1930s. But it's only in the last decade or so that careful experiments in biochemistry labs using spectroscopy have shown very clear evidence, firm evidence, that there are certain specific mechanisms that require quantum mechanics to explain them. Quantum biology brings together quantum physicists, biochemists, molecular biologists. It's a very interdisciplinary field. I come from quantum physics, so I'm a nuclear physicist. I've spent more than 3 decades trying to get my head around quantum mechanics. One of the founders of quantum mechanics, Niels Bohr, said, if you're not astonished by it, then you haven't understood it. So I sort of feel happy that I'm still astonished by it. That's a good thing. But it means I study the very smallest structures in the universe, the building blocks of reality. If we think about the scale, size, start with something and...
So he's going to go into how small, measurements have to be, measuring the very, very small, But I want to get into some of these ideas of nature. Let me see if I can find that.
Scott, quick
double helix structure of the...
Sure.
Quick interruption. I think our comments are turned off.
Oh, are they turned off? How do you turn them on, though?
Because it says comments are turned on.
Yeah, I noticed last time.
Oh no, I see your comment now. From being human.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on today.
I can see everything in the live chat here.
Okay. Well, because
But
I can't even.
yeah. I'm gonna go check it out. In the meantime, I'll play this video so I don't disrupt anything. Hold on just a second.
DNA. To paraphrase a description in the book, he says, at the molecular level, living organisms have a certain order, a structure to them that's very different from the random thermodynamic jostling of atoms and molecules in inanimate matter of the same complexity. In fact, living matter seems to behave in its order, in its structure, just like inanimate matter, cooled down to near absolute zero.
Yeah, live chat is on.
Where quantum effects play a very important role. There's something special about the structure, the order inside a living cell. So Schrödinger speculated that maybe quantum mechanics plays a role in life. It's a very speculative, sort of far-reaching idea, and it didn't really go very far. But as I mentioned at the start, in the last 10 years, there have been experiments emerging showing where some of these certain phenomena in biology do seem to require quantum mechanics. And I want to share with you just a few of the exciting ones. This is one of the best-known phenomena in the quantum world, quantum tunneling. The box on the left shows the wave-like spread-out distribution of a quantum entity, a particle, like an electron, which is not a little ball bouncing off a wall. It's a wave that has a certain probability of being able to permeate through a solid wall, like a phantom leaking through to the other side. You can see a faint smudge of light in the right-hand box. Quantum tunneling suggests that a particle can hit an impenetrable barrier and yet somehow, as though by magic, disappear from one side and reappear on the other. The nicest way of explaining it is if you want to throw a ball over a wall, you have to give it enough energy to get over the top of the wall. In the quantum world, you don't have to throw it over the wall, you can throw it at the wall, and there's a certain non-zero probability that it'll disappear on your side and reappear on the other. This isn't speculation, by the way. This is, we're happy, well, sorry, happy is not the right word.
Make 2025 the year resolutions become reality. Start your degree with WGU.
We are familiar with this. We know quantum tunneling takes place all the time. In fact, it's the reason our sun shines. The particles fuse together in the sun, turning hydrogen into helium through quantum tunneling. Back in the 70s and 80s, it was discovered that quantum tunneling also takes place inside living cells. Enzymes, those workhorses of life, the catalysts of chemical reactions. Enzymes are biomolecules that speed up chemical reactions in living cells by many, many orders of magnitude. And it's always been a mystery how they do this. Well, it was discovered that one of the tricks that enzymes have evolved to make use of is by transferring subatomic particles like electrons and indeed protons from one part of a molecule to another via quantum tunneling. It's efficient, it's fast, it can disappear, a proton can disappear from one place and reappear on the other. Enzymes help this take place. In mutations in DNA, again, this is not a new idea, it goes all the way back to the early 60s. So the two strands of DNA, the double helix structure, are held together by rungs. It's like a twisted ladder. And those rungs of the ladder are hydrogen bonds, protons that act as the glue between the two strands. So if you zoom in, what they're doing is holding these large molecules, nucleotides, together. Zoom in a bit more. So this is a computer simulation. The two white balls in the middle are protons, and you can see that it's a double hydrogen bond. One prefers to sit on one side and the other on the other side of the strand. So the two strands are the vertical lines going down, which you can't see. It can happen that these two protons can hop over, watch the two white balls, they can jump over to the other side. If the two strands then separate, two strands of DNA separate, leading to the process of replication, and the two protons are in the wrong positions, this can lead to a mutation. This has been known for half a century. The question is, how likely can they do that? And if they do, how do they do it?
It's like magic. They use magic, you know?
Almost
Here's another
weekly,
example.
with new papers coming out confirming that this does indeed take place. My third and final example is the most beautiful, wonderful idea. It's also still very speculative, but I have to share it with you. The European robin migrates from Scandinavia down to the Mediterranean every autumn. And like a lot of other marine animals and even insects, they navigate by sensing the Earth's magnetic field. Now, the Earth's magnetic field is very, very weak. It's 100 times weaker than a fridge magnet, and yet it affects the chemistry somehow within a living organism. That's not in doubt. A German couple of ornithologists, Wolfgang and Roswitha Wilczko, in the 1970s confirmed that indeed the robin does find its way by somehow sensing the Earth's magnetic field to give it directional information, a built-in compass. The puzzle, the mystery was, how does it do it? Well, the only theory in town, we don't know if it's the correct theory, but the only theory in town is that it does it via something called quantum entanglement. Inside the robin's retina, I kid you not, inside the robin's retina is a protein called cryptochrome, which is light sensitive. Within cryptochrome, a pair of electrons are quantum entangled. Now, quantum entanglement is when two particles are far apart and yet somehow remain in contact with each other. Even Einstein hated this idea. He called it spooky action at a distance. So if Einstein doesn't like it, then we can all be uncomfortable with it. Two quantum entangled electrons within a single molecule dance a delicate dance that is very sensitive to the direction the bird flies in the Earth's magnetic field. We don't know if it's the correct explanation, but wow, wouldn't it be exciting if quantum mechanics helps birds navigate? Quantum biology is still in its infancy.
And this video is like 10, 15 years old, and since then, there's been a lot of evidence supporting all of the things he's talking about, like the robin. I think they did an experiment where they put the robins in these Faraday cages, which could keep them away from magnetic interference, or because they were thinking maybe it's like some kind of internal compass in their brain is all it really is. But that depends on, them getting information coming in from nature. So they set up these Faraday cages to test for it, and the thing was still able to do quantum entanglement without all that. So a lot of interesting stuff about that, but I just wanted to kind of establish that, quantum effects can take place in principle, in computers and in brains and cells and things like that.
Right.
Which is kind of like a scientific way of promoting the idea that there could be, as the Dr. Fragine said, this consciousness field, which is like the same as a quantum field. It's timeless, it's outside of space, and it's from which everything else comes from. All possibilities and probabilities actually come out of that space, which sounds just like idealism,
And it's like we're always tuning into frequencies, just like a radio would.
Right.
And then we just process that. Like I experience those type of things. I tune into a certain frequency, and all of a sudden I have a realization. And a long time ago, years ago, I didn't know what that was. I was like, what the hell, am I going crazy? But then I started seeing numbers, and there is something to that. And like number sequences, like for example, 4444, and I would just see it all over the damn place. Like I'm being stalked by a number and shit. But after a while, I recognized I'm just tuning into a specific frequency. That's what's happening. And then what would happen, specific things would start happening whenever I'm tuned into a specific frequency. Like, for example, during the time, this is years ago, I was going through stuff with the baby daddy, and he had this fucked up ass energy, right, about himself. He's actually a sociopath on paper, you know what I mean? With homicidal tendencies and shit. Yeah, I know how to pick them, but anyway. But anyway, like whenever he was about to call me or show up, I would literally see 1111. And it got to the point that as soon as I saw that number pop up anywhere, I would be like, oh, this motherfucker about to fuck with me. And then sure as shit, I'd get a message from this motherfucker. And it would be so bad. It would be so bad I'm driving and the person in front of me has a license plate that says 1111, you know, shit like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know, there's a lot of evidence that people point to these days regarding telepathy and some of these sort of telepathic talents that people can have. And
but
a
I
lot of
think
people kind of they kind of look at it like woo woo and
but it's really not. If you look at it from the perspective of quantum mechanics, it has to do with entanglement, because I'm entangled with this person, you know, because especially if you're, you know, sleeping with that person and there is an actual entanglement, and it can be just mental, you know, it can be just on a mental state. When you're talking to somebody, you're exchanging energy all the time. So if you're entangled with somebody in any kind of way, it doesn't matter if that person is in China. You know what I'm saying?
Have you ever heard of this? And I've got the video pulled up, the telepathy tapes.
No, sir, I have not.
I first learned about this 3 weeks ago when this video came out. It is basically a scientific experiment with multiple autistic children who can't really speak or speak very funny, you know. And so their brain sort of is quiet in that area, or is kind of not very good at expressing, you know, words and stuff like that, but it's very strong in other areas. You know, I think we kind of talked about how that can happen. Like if there's one side of your brain that doesn't really work, sometimes your brain compensates for it in other ways. But anyways,
right, but
what some of these kids do is they have actually are able to channel into telepathic, you know, skills because of having this sort of, you know, sort of brain situation, I guess you might call it. So I wanted to kind of show a little bit of that video, like how they're doing that, because it kind of goes along with a lot of what you're just talking about. I was just thinking about that.
Right.
Yeah, let me show you this video real quick. Now this guy's, I think he's let me get to the goal of the experiment.
We are not acting as we should be as human beings. We need to be meeting each other with love and acceptance and unity, and those aren't just silly words. And I think what I have learned from them is to understand that your consciousness survives death, and our thoughts and our feelings become manifest in this world. And if we can control those things, how much will change the earth in which we're living.
We are fully audited at all times by whatever communication modality we're talking about right now. And if we were to really not just, you know, clean up our room, make our bed, but like look inside. I think everybody would say they have work to do. And I think that would make us a lot more compassionate and forgiving when it comes to other people, because everybody's got stuff they've got to work through. And it's so interesting and ironic that we call many of these kids, you know, disabled or different than, when in fact on that dimension, which is probably the most important dimension, they're like way more advanced than all of us.
Right. No, we have the disability.
That's right. Yeah. It's so amazing. And it brings up all sorts of questions that you kind of discuss in episode 1 and 2 as well, as like, how is this happening? What is the method of transmission? And
save more when you get Cox Internet and one unlimited Cox mobile line for just $80.
This is, we should caveat, all speculative. We don't know. What we do know is that this is happening in a statistically significant way. It needs to be taken seriously by science. But it's interesting. I have a good friend actually who was at the Princeton parapsychology lab.
Cool.
And he would always use the term remote perception instead of remote viewing. And I'd always be like, what are you talking about? Remote, like, why is that like a distinction at all?
Yeah.
And I do notice in both Mia and Akil's case, they have a particular connection with one of the parents where it's almost this low latency mind meld.
Yeah.
And so, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I do. Because again, like,
Sounds like entanglement.
important as the studies are for skeptics and stuff like that, the stuff that really moved me to the point of completely cracking open my paradigm was hearing what the parents would talk about. So one of the things that Manisha talked about was, look, this isn't, again, just sending information. I could be watching a movie upstairs and he could be, or downstairs, and he could be in a whole other room of the house, playing on his iPad, can't hear anything. And I could come back up and he'll tell me exactly what happened in this movie. Or she said, or I could be reading a book and you read books silently to yourself. And she would ask Akil later a question about what she just read in the book, and he could answer correctly. Like, where does this character live? And he'd write, San Diego or whatever. Or she'd say, I could be away at school. He'd be at school and I'd go run errands, and I'd come home, or he'd come home from school and he'd say, how was Target? How was Walmart? Why didn't you get the chocolate at Trader Joe's or whatever? So he would know exactly what she did. And so that's where it becomes more than just telepathy. It's some sort of beautiful merging. And I just can't emphasize enough that for these parents who have had their hope shattered, were told that they would never connect with their child wasn't in there, beyond learning that they're in there, that they're intelligent, that the greatest gift is that their connection is so.
Yeah, that's really wild, man. And if you guys have a chance, you can look at the videos where they actually go through the experiments, on camera. So you can see them playing out. Like, they'll write something down on a piece of paper in one room. They have a camera in another room. Or they'll do it right in front of the kid. Like, they'll have the parent will come up and write a thing out, and the kid's right there. And he'll say exactly what you're writing. Like, just real clear, predictions, that are made. So it's really wild, man. It's called the telepathy tapes. If you guys have a chance, you can definitely check that out.
Wow.
But I think,
that's
I think
amazing.
it goes along with what you just said about entanglement, because she was saying that there's that connection that's made, first.
Yeah, because the reason I thought about that is because on our last show, that guy, what's his name? I fucking forgot.
Joel Davis?
Oh, yeah, he had asked me a question about when we were talking about intuition, he said, well, what if two people have a different, intuition on the same thing or whatever? And I'm like, I was thinking about it. That usually doesn't happen, that two people have the same intuition at the same time. Like, I can't remember a scenario where something like that would happen. The reason that you would even get like an intuition about something is because there's some form of entanglement already happening, beforehand. Like, you're either involved with this person on a personal level or something. There has to be some kind of entanglement.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to kind of wrap all that stuff around, I kind of wanted to like establish a few things, like that it's very possible that quantum effects can happen in the mind just from a physical perspective. And that also idealism is very, very parsimonious, and scientists even really look at this stuff seriously to dig deeper, to understand quantum mechanics in the physical world. But we're talking about the Bible and how all that ties back into the Bible. And we played the video where we talk about John 1:1 and Genesis, about how God, through his word, he created everything. Now, I know a lot of pushback that I receive from a lot of Christians to say, well, that's kind of a heresy, because now you're trying to say that man was not created from the dust of the ground, that he was created from the mind, not the dust. But the dust is an appearance in consciousness, and all of this stuff can be interpreted as just a way of speaking about the world. Because, look,
The dust is just the arrangement. It's the arrangement of your human avatar, because when you die, the dust turns back into dust and you go back to the damn ground. So it's just the arrangement. It's just the organization, the structure, and the order in, that forms your body. But yeah, that's still comes from the mind.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. You can start off, just depends on your starting point. If your starting point is, materialism or dualism, then of course you can interpret it in terms of that. But again, idealism is a lot more parsimonious, and it just makes a lot of sense. Now, I haven't even looked at this video right here. Well, I don't want to play that one because there's no.
Also, I wanted to share a few more scriptures for the Christian.
Sure, please.
For the Christian apologists that may be watching, there are more scriptures that support the idealism view. So in Matthew 17:20, it says, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move." And then in Luke 17:21, it says, "The kingdom of God is within you," which goes along with idealism that says, consciousness is a subjective personal experience that's happening with the inner you. And then the passage suggests that reality is shaped by belief and consciousness, which is a core concept in idealism. So that's just more, that more things in the Bible that support idealism and actually debunks the Christian apologist literal, view on things.
Yeah, and it sort of like reminds me in a way of a Gnostic sort of interpretation too. Like the kingdom within you, the secret of knowledge is to go within you and sort of look for God in that way, rather than externally
outside of you.
And through establishments and things like that. That the truth is within you. And a lot of these things, a lot of people take this for granted. The Bible wasn't written when Jesus walked the earth. So if you're going to believe that Jesus is the teacher and Jesus encompassed the truth of, the Bible, how do we understand God and his teachings? This was before the Bible. The Bible was
he had to have learned it from something that was before that.
Yes, and it's argued that he was a Gnostic, that he sort of had Gnostic sort of teachings. And,
some people say he went to the Middle East and picked up like some teachings from there or whatever.
Buddhist teachings and stuff. And even Buddhists will tell you that Jesus, a lot of them, and especially in some Hindu interpretations, they'll say that there's always a great teacher that comes up for every, generation, and Jesus was one of them. He was a teacher.
This whole topic is just very important to me because I remember we had this discussion with Alejandro about crime. Remember that? And I was simply saying that, our prisons aren't designed to reform people, and we punish crime, and I'm not saying crime shouldn't be punished, but the main thing we lack is trying to figure out what are the underlying issues that caused all these crimes to happen in the first place. And he was all like, "Oh, just tell me without telling me that you want to be soft on crime." And I'm like, no, I'm actually trying to find a solution.
Right.
And so when you think of idealism and you come to the realization that that the power really is with the people, because if we create reality as we go along by the way that we think, then we are 100% responsible for the type of world that we create. And it seems that the establishment wants to keep people believing that, we have to rely on them to create and lay it out for us. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we'll never really get to the point where we can create heaven on earth, so to speak, because the people that are in power are always going to want to stay in power. That's never going to change unless we start changing our perspective.
And Jesus said that people's reward is where you find it, and people find a lot of their rewards here on earth. They find it through the material things. Like if you have like this materialistic sort of paradigm, then all of your value is going to be on things, the shiny objects, and that's going to be pretty much.
What does the Bible say about that? What does the Bible say about that, though?
Yeah, it's like the love of those things is
remember
the root
that guy?
of evil,
Remember that king in the Bible who was like, "Oh yeah, I have all these riches," and he was stacking up all his riches and sleeping on top of them and proud of it and shit. And remember, the Lord came to him and said, "You fool," because the next day his ass was dead, and none of those riches meant shit.
Right. And Christianity, and specifically, really talks about that. When Jesus says, "Don't gather up for yourselves riches on the earth that the moth can come and disrupt or destroy. Rather, put all of your treasures in heaven, where they'll be, indestructible."
And what is heaven?
And that's the thing, heaven is within you. A mental state, it's within you. There's so many ways, if you were really to open up and look at what Jesus actually says,
Sorry about that.
Like Luke, Luke 12:15 says, Jesus said to them, "Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions."
Right.
And he's talking about the material things, that's not where the value is at. Hebrews 13:5.
No, because it separates us. It causes us to fight over who has more, and it causes people to be greedy and want to hoard, and it causes nothing but division. And just like that lady said in that video, we shouldn't be treating each other like that as humans, and it's not just bullshit words. We should be promoting unity, a unified state of mind. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's what the scripture I was thinking about. Matthew 6, I just pulled it up. Chapter 6, 19 through 21 says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." That's really what he said. So yeah, it just lets you know, if you have this materialistic paradigm, you put your value in these appearances that we see in the world. And all of that stuff is just abstractions, like money, for example. It's just paper.
Believing that the matter creates reality. And it's the same thing as saying, I believe that all this materialism creates happiness.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't. That's why you have rich people, billionaires, committing suicide and being lonely. Like they get affected by all the same shit. You think they're all miraculously happy because they have a lot? I doubt it.
And yeah, and it's, for me, it's more of an identity thing. It goes very deep because, while we all need money to kind of make it in the world, because everybody's in this unified consciousness that materialism, money, things are the currency that's going to help you survive in this world as a physical material being. And so, yeah, you kind of have to negotiate with it. But when you identify yourself with this shit, you're like kind of asking yourself to be really depressed at the end of the day, because, I could have a job today. What happens if I lose? Yeah, what if I lose all my job, my house, my car? Am I supposed to just now view myself as worthless now?
Right, you won't be nothing without it. completely nothing. And that's the problem with narcissism. The narcissist creates a false self, and he refuses to work through his trauma because that means opening the floodgates of trauma, and he's not willing to face that. So he holds on to the false self until he successfully denies the trauma that he needs to work through, to the point where he forgets who he is. And then all that he has left is an image, an idol of himself,
Right.
that he constructed. And that's why he will tell you, that's all I have. Without that, I'm nothing.
Yes. And that's a Christian theme throughout the entire teachings of Jesus, was to put materialistic things, the physical world, as really secondary. Even the Gnostics viewed the material world as, as bad, negative. Someone, I forget exactly, I think it may have been Paul, that says that, this is just rags, dirty rags. That this world, the materialism, all of that is very empty, and it's very misleading. It's very illusionary. But when you really see yourself for who you really are, which is really an experience that's unchanging and infinite, that's where your real foundation can be. And under idealism, this opens it up for everybody, regardless of your religion. Everything can be interpreted in this light, and I just think it's a much more
it's a more unifying concept, for sure.
Yes.
Because once you understand that, like, to me, it also comes down to accountability. You know what I mean? Even when it comes to like big pharma, we rely on medicine so much that we forgot how to take care of ourselves. Like, plain and simple. We don't even know how to eat right and how to exercise correctly, and we rely on what's being told to us 24/7. We can't fucking do anything on our own. Like, we're just constantly relying on the material world and what it tells us to do.
Yeah, anything like holistic medicine, holistic ideas are in the West kind of looked down upon. They're kind of like primitive ideas. And the thing is that I think that the people of ancient times that actually spent thousands of years experiencing these things and working with these things knew something. They really put the consciousness first, the aspect of feeling, the aspect of knowing what it's like. They understood that relationship, that holistic sort of relationship.
Understanding that everything is interconnected.
Exactly. And we lose that when you
there's
really
this powerful Lakota proverb, and it shows a man sitting in like a meditative position, and it says, when you take a man out of nature, his heart becomes hard because you sever that connection. And that's what happens when you take people and displace them and scatter them all over the place. You cause them to lose their connection. And once they lose their connection, I mean, it's like killing your creativity. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're not, like, how are you supposed to get any kind of juice flowing through you when you don't have a connection?
Right. And it's like, also you just limit yourself. We limit ourselves when we think that the only thing that's really real is what we can measure. It's the only thing that either it's not real. If you can't measure it and interact with it, it means that it's either not real or it doesn't really matter. But
to me, that is so stupid, man.
That's so stupid, because most of the things that really matter to you in life is your conscious, subjective, inner world. That's exactly what really matters of anything,
Right.
And there's so
That's
much
just
that
stupid.
you can do that that you can experiment with, like your own consciousness, like lucid dreaming, like out-of-body experiences, like these telepathy tapes, like all of these things are really anomalies that really point to a greater reality that we're really ignoring in the West.
Mm-hmm. We do.
You know, and a lot of people want to downplay it and say, well, those things are just, you know, the term hallucination, whatever that means, really, you know, and all of these things without really looking at it deeply and understand that there's ways you can test for things that are hallucinations versus things that really have, you know, a bearing on the world, this external world as well, you know?
Yeah, to me, it's just ridiculous. I mean, what do you call believing that money can make you happy and make you a person of status and all of that? All that stuff is delusional as well, because you can have all this money and then you're going to die and nobody gives a fuck about you.
That's right. Heck yeah, man.
What makes you...
It's a trap.
What people remember about you is not how much fucking money you had. It's about your character, and your character is something that's, you know, what's the word? Intangible.
Intangible, yeah. Intangible
like I can't touch your character, but I can remember your character by your words, your actions, you know, the things that you did, the shit you left behind through your music or your art or your words or your speeches. Nobody gives a fuck about your money when you die.
No.
Nobody remembers you for that shit.
And even like for people who, you know, a lot of these people gain a lot of money, and the first thing they want to do is they want to find, you know, something they've never had. They want to experience a relationship, maybe with a beautiful woman or man or whatever the case is, and they use their money as the bait. And so when they finally get into a relationship with that, you know, ideal person, well, that ideal person was baited. So they only wanted your car or your house or your money, and they didn't really care about you. And then that becomes a vicious cycle. Once you start waking up to that, now you're not happy with that anymore. So then, you know, I really do believe that a lot of these people you're talking about, like they commit suicide, it's because they've bought into this materialistic paradigm. And so they've based their whole life and accomplishment to go after the material, what it has to offer, which is very, very superficial. And it ends up being depressing and problematic, you know.
And you know, a good example of that is when I was younger and skinnier and more beautiful and shit, you know, I always had these guys attracted to me that try to use me as like this trophy girl. And none of the connections I made were genuine because of it. And I felt like an object. You know, I wasn't loved by anybody. I was just paraded and, oh, look at what I got. Look at her. She's pretty and shit like that. You know, but
I understand. I have to tell all the women at work, look, man, I'm not an object, okay? Stop running it. I'm just kidding.
No, but that's how it is. And, you know, as I got older and I had a couple kids and I gained a little weight and I wasn't looking all cute anymore and shit, you know, and in a way, when my beauty started fading and I started getting older and my wisdom started getting bigger, I started making more genuine connections in general, because people weren't just focused on what I look like anymore. People were actually focusing on my character and, you know, my attitude or whatever. And all of my connections became more deeper, you know? So like being beautiful outwardly, it means shit. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day.
You know, me and my brother last year when he was here in Florida, one day we were having a discussion because he was talking about these guys we met at a bar wanted my brother to sing, because you know my brother sang with world-class musicians like James Brown and Atlanta Rhythm Section, and he's done all these great things, touring Europe and all this kind of stuff in his heyday. And now he's like, he considers himself like, I'm just not, I've been there, done that. I'm not really worried about that, especially since I've, you know, started growing up spiritually and thinking about things on a more deeper level. I'm not really driven by that anymore. I really don't care to be the star of the show. I don't care to be the center of the attention, or so it's really it's kind of lost all its attraction, you know. So a lot of people were asking my brother, they hadn't seen him in years. They're like, man, you still sing? Man, I can't keep up with you all the time. And, you know, you sing here and there and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you come with my band and sing and stuff like that? And my brother's like, yeah, maybe, we'll see, whatever. He never really did it. But then he was telling me, you know, we were looking at TV one day and we were looking at Madonna. And Madonna's like, what, 70, 80 years old or something. And she's out here.
She ain't 80, but she's
old, man. And she's out here really trying to, you know, make a mark again or whatever. And me and my brother were like, man, how sad is that? Like, why don't you just end it gracefully? Like,
because she don't got nothing without that. She doesn't have anything without that. Her public persona is what she made her personality. She doesn't exist anymore. Without it, she has nothing.
Man, and you know, just dealing with, and I've met, you know, semi-stars. Remember, I was working with MC Globe from Soul Sonic Force, and he was kind of a person who was really big at one time, and he's still trying to like make a hit record and stuff like that. And it's like the dude's like 60 years old. I mean, it's fine if you want to really just make music for the love of music, which basically that was our conversation. But there's actually people that they have to really stay on top all their life. Otherwise, they feel like they're falling off and they're losing value, and they're not they're not relative anymore. And that's just a sad way to be. It seems to me, by embracing idealism and embracing like this holistic sort of existence, this existential philosophy, for me, it's just, ever since I've done that, I've just become so much more grounded in permanent things like that, rather than these concepts of material, you know.
Yeah, because all that comes down to is you're forever seeking validation, and who the fuck wants to live like that? You're literally living for the validations that others give you. So that's like trying to generate happiness from the outside and making other people and other things and external things responsible for your own inner peace. And you'll never fucking achieve that, because there's always going to be a motherfucker who's going to say you're ugly even if you think you're pretty. There's always going to be a motherfucker saying you ain't got no talent even though others say you do have talent. You will never, it's like chasing the fucking wind. So why not just accept the fact that we're all going to die, we're all going to get old, we're all going to shrivel up. Do the best that you can. Like, I don't agree with people who completely let themselves go and don't even put an effort into their appearance and fucking run around stinky and shit, you know? I think that is a reflection on your character, a direct reflection.
An unhealthy reflection.
Yeah, an unhealthy one. But at the same time, like, if you're concerned only about the outer and you're willing to fucking fuck yourself up and get surgeries and whatnot and just to look good, like you're 85, you can't look like you're 20. Appreciate your wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Like, it looks ridiculous. Men talking about, oh, I only want to fuck with you if you're no older than 25 and putting expiration dates on women. Yeah, but that 25-year-old wants to drive your car and, you know, doesn't want to be tied down, and now you got a whole fucking dumbass on your hands. You know what I'm saying? All for the sake of, because she has a young body. Like, this whole thinking is so stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's fucking stupid. What do I want to do with a fucking 20-year-old dude? What I'm going to do with him? You know, this nigga want to This nigga want to watch cartoons and shit. Like, come on, man. And in the bedroom, like, I'm gonna have to give you sex classes and teach you what to do. I don't got time for that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm old. My time running out. You better know what the fuck you doing. Or you getting kicked out. I ain't got time for that. I'd rather sit there and knit a sweater than fucking deal with that shit.
No, for real, man. Hey,
You know,
there's nothing worse than being entangled with a person who you can't really vibe on any kind of level at all. Like, I understand there's differences. Everybody's going to be different in different ways, and that's fine. But you got to have something in common. Like, there's got to be something that's going to tie you guys together. And
there has to be a
worthy.
foundation. There has to be a foundation. And that's like idealism, because the foundation is consciousness rather than fucking materialistic shit. Because at the end of the day, like what I used to teach my kids, because there was times that we didn't have shit, okay? We were homeless twice when I was younger and they were babies. And I had to be in the shelter at one point. And we had this small little mattress, and it was me and my two boys. And we sposed on that little mattress and slept on there. And, I told them, we don't really have a whole lot right now, but one thing we do have, we have each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what counts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that I deeply ingrained that into them to make sure that when I leave this motherfucker, that's how they think, that they have each other no matter what, because that's what matters.
And I've seen, in relationships, and I've even experienced it myself, is that sometimes people become conflicted because here's the deal. Everything you're talking about, we all have that capacity to really entangle with each other. So one person could be like very materialistic, another person could be very spiritual minded. And somehow these two people become very connected in some way or form. But say the
sounds
materialistic,
like somebody I know.
Yeah. But then the materialistic person still has that value of material. So they maybe the spiritual person lost their job or lost the resources for a lot of money and material things. So now, while the materialistic person still has love for that person, they can't help it. They spent too much time. They're comfortable with the person. They've come to, get together on so many different ways. Hold on 1 second. I got a call coming in. Sorry about that. I'm on call this weekend, so I just got a on call that came in. But anyways, I'll deal with that in a little bit. But I was saying that, it creates like this weird internal struggle with the materialists, because they're like, I love this person, but I don't know why, because he ain't got a job, he ain't got no money or something. Or maybe she lost her looks, or he lost his looks, or something happened. And so, but I still love the dude, but goddamn it, he ain't got a job no more. So I don't know how I feel about him no more. Like, it's a problem. So that it becomes conflicted. They become conflicted in themselves.
I think there's a purpose even to those type of, dynamics. I think the purpose is that it's kind of like opposites attract, and I think the purpose is to find a middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
It always goes back to the concept of balance. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We need money, but it shouldn't define who you are as a person. And again, like, you should take care of your outer body and things like that, but at the end of the day, there's more to you that's more foundational than that, you know. And so I think that's what we're meant to learn. So we subconsciously maybe place ourselves in certain situations that cause that entanglement and attraction, because on a fundamental level, like deep beneath the surface, that's what we're trying to accomplish. That's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to bring the two together and create a balance. And I think that with every relationship or any person that you ever encounter, whether it's in a romantic relationship or not, that's what we're trying to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And we do grow by we don't grow by staying in our comfort zone. We grow by
Right.
being in challenging situations with challenging people, and go through a measure of suffering can actually
Yes.
bring you into that mature person, you know. And I
That
think too that,
sucks.
and yeah, it's not easy, man. And
Because
you know,
I'm a runner. I'm a runner. Like the longest relationship I ever been in was like maybe 3 years, because I'm like, nope, not doing this shit. Bye. See you later. Now you see
yeah,
me. Now you don't. That was me. I would jump towns, cities. Hell, I jumped countries to get away from bullshit,
oh
you
yeah,
know?
man, I
But
know
then
that.
I was just like that. I'm not sticking around for shit. Like if I don't want this, I don't want it. Bye.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to find the lesson in shit. Get out of here.
yeah,
You
and
know.
there's certain lessons you don't need to go through again and again. That's
So
the
I was
reason you
like,
went through them.
yeah. So I was very non-committal, because I always had this like philosophy that I'm not committing myself to shit that doesn't resonate with me. Period.
Yeah, you
But then
can't blame me for that.
sometimes, yeah. But then sometimes, that could, you. The reason I'm saying that's also kind of dangerous is because sometimes certain things happen for a reason, and you could also be blocking your opportunity to learn something. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because maybe I was a little rigid, you know,
Yeah.
and stubborn and not wanting to see things from other people's perspective. Because you got to understand, I was still in my trauma. Anything that even closely resembles that trauma, I didn't want shit to do with it. Even if it
Right.
wasn't, that. But if it looked like that to me, that was all it took.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I've been traumatized. I've been traumatized so much, man. I just don't really trust a whole lot of people sometimes, because I understand how cold people can be, and how they've
Yes.
actually hurt me, and how I've actually let it happen, trying to give them a second chance or a third chance, or just be open to it. And it happens enough, you kind of get the idea. Somebody hit you in the head enough, you start learning, man, I need to get out of there.
Yes.
Like, that's just
No, for
common
sure.
sense. And
Like
yeah,
if
and
you
it's
just
sad because some people, what I've had to learn is that not everybody's the same. And a lot of people hate it when you're judging them based on your past trauma. They're like, look, man, I'm not this person or that person. I'm my own person. I'm not going to do you that way. Or maybe you're misinterpreting what I said in light of what somebody else did to you at one point in time. And you got to be careful that you're not doing that shit to somebody. I understand all
yeah.
that, but it can be really hard to figure that out. And sometimes people can use that vagueness against you, like just the way like narcissists will always
Yeah.
gaslight you. They'll gaslight the shit out of you and
Like
make it
you ain't
feel like,
seeing what you like you ain't
yeah,
seeing what you seeing, and I'm like, okay, you're saying you're not that person. Well, why the hell are you acting like that person? Exactly the same, like,
exactly,
am I
exactly.
crazy now? And it's like, yeah, you're crazy. And I'm like, yeah, okay. See, that's the type of shit that make me want to run for the hills again.
Well,
Like,
and there's a principle of unattachment in Buddhism that says, you're not really to cut down on as much suffering as you can, which the whole point of life is to not suffer and be peaceful. So if that's the case, you don't want to get too attached to anything or anybody. because people will change and let you down. Things will change
Yeah, and
and
that's
let you
why
down.
I always had this like philosophy that I never want to be in a relationship where I don't feel whole or complete without that person, because anything can happen. Like, you know what I'm saying? A
Yep.
separation could be inevitable if that person dies or leaves me or whatever. And you always still have to have that foundation, you know, that
Yeah.
keeps you grounded and whole within yourself no matter what. And
Yeah.
it's nice to share and to have a life partner, of course, you know, but at the end of the day, man, when you die, you're going to be doing that by yourself.
Yeah.
And you got to know where your state of mind is when you leave this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's not going to depend on who's next to you or who's around you. If you're nothing without a person, you already are nothing. You know what I'm saying?
You come in this world alone and you're going to leave alone. That's the bottom line. And also
At
too,
least as far as your own experience, it's going to be your
yeah.
own experience no matter what.
Yeah. And I tell you, man, there was a time in my life I used to really love to be around a lot of people. Like, I used to really need it. I used to need to have a lot of friends and a lot of people. And I really wasn't at peace with myself unless, and I hated being alone. I got lonely all the time. But now in my older age, I've come to really value being alone and having my peaceful time with myself and really just being acquainted with who I am. And, you know, there's something to be said about that. And I think that's maturity. And it
Yes.
also is practicing the principle of unattachment, because I don't really need a whole lot of people. And the less you need in this world, the better. And one old guy once told me that life is all about letting go of shit until you finally die, till you finally let go of life. It's just a long process of eventually letting go of everything, you know.
Yeah, but that's also like a two-edged sword, because I was the complete opposite. I always wanted to be alone, and I was always a loner, even though I attracted a lot of people that want to be around me. I wasn't like that, though. I wanted to be alone. I didn't really like crowds. I didn't really like hanging out with a bunch of
Yeah.
people. And it was always just me. Like, I like to be alone, to the point where I'm so used to that I can't be around a lot of people for a long ass time. I can't. I still have a problem with that today. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I've done DMT several times, you already know. And one time I had this experience, like, because with DMT, it's like everything happens within. As soon as you do it, you just go within, and then whatever is your inner experience. But this particular time, it was like I was forced to keep my eyes open, and it was like I had these thoughts in my head that were saying, find the beauty, find the beauty. There is still beauty in this. Like, because to me, the external world was just so disgusting, and everything was just evil to me. And, you know, like, I just completely shut it out. Like, I didn't want shit to do with nothing, with nobody. And I just saw this world as horrible, you know? And that's also, like, not very productive, because just shutting yourself out of it and no longer participating in it, I mean, that's not going to help make it better, you know?
Yeah.
And there's still goodness in it, but we just have to have a more unified outlook and perspective on things, and start working together as humans instead of constantly like canceling each other out. I think this whole cancel culture is a real manifestation of that mindset, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're out here literally canceling each other out. You got men against women, women against men, and it's like, man, like, do y'all even realize we need each other? Like, what the fuck? There's a correlation there between the material and the end consciousness. You know, that correlation is there. It's just that we need to figure out how to find the balance between the two. And so that's what was taught to me in a way when I did DMT, that particular experience, that completely shutting it out is also not the way, but to realize that there's a correlation and to find a balance. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's the key.
But yeah, but still knowing what the underlying fundamental parts of life, what it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus just on the spirit, right, and disassociate yourself completely from the material, that's also like a disconnect. But if you focus only on the material and disregard the spirit entirely, that's also a disconnect. Like, there needs to be a middle ground. And we need to fully understand that correlation. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's all here for us. It's like our consciousness is for us. So whatever appears in our consciousness is something that's happening to us. And so, we have to embrace it. We have to take it for what it is and negotiate with it and learn from it. And you have to be balanced. You can't like just disregard entirely the subjective experience of life. You can't, that's kind of impossible. You can't really dismiss the external world for what it is. It's, you experience solidity, you experience things. You're going to bump into stuff all the time if you do that. And you don't want to do that. You want to negotiate with the external world and find meaning in it. It's part of what helps us find meaning in life subjectively, because, through all those trials and tribulations and hard times and suffering and good things and bad things together, that's where we kind of form our concepts of what works for us. It's all relational to us. And, it's not good to just dismiss a whole lot of things. I think when Jesus said, be no part of the world, he was saying that even though you're part of the world, you're no part of the world. And
but he said be in it, but not of it. Like,
right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's like the scripture that definitely supports idealism, because it's letting you know you're not from matter. It's the other way around, and realize that you're in it, but you're not of it.
Right. And so you don't have to take it so serious that you identify with it, because
you're having the experience, but it's not the underlying fundamental truth.
Right. Exactly. The kingdom is in your midst. It's something that's in you, and you can embrace it. So
hey, Joel,
I agree.
I know you're gonna disagree with all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's all good, man. Unfortunately, I got to get off here in a few so I can get back to work, but I was hoping it was going to stay quiet today. But I got that call, so daggone it. But
well, we can do another show if you want, sometime this week.
Yeah. And we can
get it a little more organized.
Else. Yeah.
And we had some technical issues, but I would like some Christians to come on, because I really would like to argue that biblical scripture actually supports idealism. And I don't know where they came up with this Christian apologist doctrine other than, who was it, John? No, not John. Yeah, John. He introduced all that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly, because he was like later on in church history, like as far as maybe the end of the 1st century, beginning of the 2nd century.
Yeah, so hopefully we could do another segment on that, and hopefully we get some Christian apologists in here.
Yeah, I want to really dive into that. Yeah, Joel, you kind of missed it. We kind of talked about it. He's like, did y'all talk about intersection Christian? Yeah, we did. Kind of briefly. We had a few videos that we kind of showed, went over a few scriptures, but unfortunately I'm on call this weekend. I just got a on-call telephone call, so I got to address that real quick. But anyways,
thanks for coming though.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Joel. We'll pick it up again soon. And thanks everybody for joining us. Again, like and subscribe. We're going to keep building out the channel. We're almost at 100 subscribers, so somebody Put us over the edge, please. We need to get at least 100. So, okay, guys, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, later.
All right, peace.